Let's take you here now. The former ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule says that he has been approached by a number of people suggesting that he should form a new political party. Magashule appeared in the Bloemfontein High Court yesterday for a pre-trial hearing in the multi-million rand asbestos fraud and corruption case. A trial date has been set for April next year. Magashule refused to elaborate on whether he would be forming a new political party, saying he remains an ANC member. Now let's get analysis. We are now joined via Zoom by political analyst Dr Ebrahim Harvey. Dr. Harvey, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Let's get your take on what Ace Magashule said outside court, just after his fraud case was postponed to 2024. Just your take around the fact that he is essentially thinking about starting a political party, saying he'd been approached by various South Africans and he's still thinking about it.
Hi, thanks for having me. Good afternoon to your viewers. No, I listened to him very carefully. He marshaled his words also very carefully because the media was present. But you must remember that we've got about a year left for the elections. Now, you have to take many things into account when you listen to Ace outside court. No doubt, you must remember also he faces 70 charges of fraud and corruption with about 16, 17 other co-accused. So it's a massive case. I'm not going to pronounce on what I think, but honestly, when I listen to the charges and, what he's had to say, often he comes close to the kind of confidence that the former chief executive officer of Coco, and you see all the charges now and what's happening. I often think about how he came across in his interviews with the media and look at what happened, But when you look at appraise this question you've put to me about whether he will, form another party, you also have to take into account the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance, ARITA, that was formed by the suspended Karl Neus just last month. Don't forget that. And don't forget also there's a close relationship between Ace Magashule, Zuma, and Karl Neus. So there's a number of things happening, and already the ANC is torn with factionalist divisions. And a lot of analysts predicting that it's going to suffer in next year's elections, the load shedding crisis, etc. I think now the ANC will be more troubled. I'll tell you why. I suspect something is at afoot here. Karl Neus forms this and registers the party also early last month. You have Julius Malema responding to Jimmy Manyi, has crossed the floor, he's left the ATM, he's joined the EFF. Malema said, "Oh, that's great. Zuma, we're waiting for you next." I'll tell you something, a lot of things could happen, and the ANC should be deeply worried because if, although he repeated that he's still an ANC member, if Zuma, Manyi's crossed over to the EFF, if Zuma should join this, and especially Ace Magashule, because of the close relationship between Ace, Zuma, and Karl Neus, don't forget. And Karl Neus also joined the march of the EFF, the shutdown. There's a whole lot of things happening there. But I'll tell you, if Zuma should throw in his hat with this move to the EFF, you're going to have serious problems really next year. They're so bitter. Both Zuma, he was jailed, and Ace Magashule charged. He was prevented from standing for election in last year's December electoral conference. They're bitter people at the moment, both Zuma, and anything could happen. So I'm trying to give you a broader context in answering the question that you've put to me.
So essentially, he does have political ambitions. Just mentioning just the charges that he's facing in this case, one wonders to what end. You mentioned, of course, ARITA. You also mentioned, of course, Mzwanele Manyi leaving ATM to go to EFF and what, former President Jacob Zuma might do. Does he have a lot of options? Is his political future set? Yes, he said in that interview that, even though he is facing these charges, it does not prevent him from starting a political party. But I'm wondering, will South Africans follow a man that the Free State has essentially, labeled somebody who has done nothing for them?
No, the South African electorate voters are very unpredictable, I'll tell you. And right now, I think the radical economic transformation and now this alliance form is gathering momentum because of the lack of service delivery. I mean, the deep disappointments of the vast majority of black working class people. I mean, we're in trouble in this country. We're facing the biggest crisis ever. No doubt. Did you see the attendance of the court whenever he appears, Ace Magashule? I think he's got considerable local support in the Free State. There's no doubt. I mean, there's 16 other people involved, but you'll always see, it could have been, rent a crowd type of thing. But he always seems to draw a crowd. Wherever he appears in court, and you see a lot of people around him, and some of them are former officials or current officials of that Free State administration. So I don't think you must dismiss. I think he's bitter. He couldn't participate in last year's election. They paralyzed him since they suspended him in 2021. He's bitter. Zuma's bitter. A whole lot of things could happen. But I don't think you should dismiss Ace Magashule, but don't look at the response to your question in isolation from what the registration of Arita by Kyle Niehaus and the movement of Mani to the EFF. I think a lot of things are happening there. And I think you're going to have some presence in next year's election from the radical economic transformation. Whether, whether Zuma joins there or EFF or goes the other way with Kyle Niehaus, we don't know. But I'll tell you something, if I was the ANC, I would be deeply worried by these developments, because it will only mean that next year's elections are far more threatening to the ANC than we had thought before.
I mean, just talking about the ANC being deeply worried, let's talk about what they are currently doing, just locally. If we have to use the example of what we are currently seeing in the coalitions, let's talk about Johannesburg, for instance. We know, of course, that the ANC had to pause its coalition policy that it just recently adopted, just to strategize together with the EFF to elect this new mayor that we are now seeing from Al Jamar. Talk to us about what we are currently seeing playing out on the local platform that could essentially be something that we could be seeing next year.
Well, only to some extent will you have a replication of what's happening in local government, the fractures, the chaos, etc., at national level. I think national level coalition government will be somewhat different. Local government, all the burning issues, service delivery explodes. I think a coalition government at national level will be somewhat different. I am almost certain about it. But clearly, I just was interviewed this morning by Channel Africa. I think what's happening in Joburg is terrible, really. It's very unfortunate. I call it in my newspaper column, the machinations of palace politics in the city of Johannesburg. None of those parties, believe me, I've watched them carefully, ever talks about service delivery program, policy issues, a program of action to deal with this devastating crisis in black townships in particular. It's always around positions, who's going to get what position and so on. And if you look at the mayoral committee of the ANC, 5-6 of the 6 top positions is held by the ANC. This guy is a token. The new mayor, like the previous mayor, the ANC is too sharp. They've been around in local government, ruling the roost until they lost in 2016 and then 21. They know the ropes. So what they will do is manipulate this guy, give him a salary, a mayoral salary. It's not something to be scoffed at. It's considerable. You look at the perks that the new mayor will enjoy, but they'll pull the strings. They'll pull the strings with the biggest budget of any municipality, 7 to 8 billion rand. In fact, the biggest municipality budget in the whole of Africa is Joburg. A lot of money to loot, tenders, etc. And so, it's just unfortunate, because I don't think bringing in same, 1% party, it's called, having 3 seats. I mean, going from one person to another. I mean, it's just an insult, to the average intelligence of voters who can see what lies behind this is a manipulation so that the ANC can pull the strings behind the curtains and control the budget, control decisions that are taken in the mayoral committee. That is the whole strategy.
Dr. Ebrahim Harvey, thank you so much for your time and your analysis. Always a pleasure. That was, of course, political analyst Dr. Ebrahim Harvey.